Welcome to Blueprint Boost for Contractors, the podcast that's your go-to source for unlocking the secrets to successful marketing, gaining valuable insights, and growing your contracting business with less stress. Your host is David Brooks, and he's thrilled to be your guide on this journey. As a seasoned expert in the contracting industry, David understands the challenges you face. That's why each episode is crafted to provide you with actionable strategies and proven blueprints to boost your business to new heights.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm your host, David Brooks, powered by Contractor Rhino. For this episode, I have another guest with us, and I'll allow him to introduce himself.
I'm Frank Bourque. I'm a business consultant in the green industry, in the home service industry. So pleasure to be here. Thanks, David.
Yeah, no problem. Nice to have you, Frank. So could you share a little bit about your background and how you got into the green industry?
Yeah, well, as a student, studying right from high school, it was more about just making my own money, being able to have some extra cash on the weekends. So I got a job in this as a just a regular technician in the summer for a landscaping company, and eventually went from a technician to learning the trade and becoming a foreman, taking care of some luxury landscapes for that company. Then I went to university. And once I graduated, I got a job in psychology. It was working in prisons with inmates. So it didn't take me very long to see that I would love to be able to have that freedom of being self-employed. And so started just gradually. We built within just a few years a company to over 100 employees. I was still employed with the federal government, but eventually I let that go to make the step to that business and to really put myself and all of it into it. So that's how I got started into the trade.
Nice, nice. That's a good journey along the way.
Yeah, we all have our own way of starting out, but definitely it was the good old grind of just being in the field and just enjoying being outdoors.
Yeah, it's nothing like outdoors to me, my personal opinion.
Yeah, sure.
So as you're into the business now today, and as you do consulting, what are the common challenges or overall, roadblocks that you've seen even this year? Um, talking to a few people and what you're consulting.
Well, the biggest problem that we'll hear, and then I'll talk about some other ones, but the biggest one is that the people, uh, the recruitment side of getting good people to work in companies and being a good fit for the positions. As we know, the landscape industry, or whether it's the home service industry, or as a contractor, if you need to hire people, I mean, some people are there part-time, some people are there for a short period of time, and some people want to do that as for a lifetime. They're very passionate about it. So it's very much a challenge. So the people issue is a challenge. Then the whole during COVID, we didn't have to worry in our industry, anyways, about finding clients. Everyone was investing into their yard. Everyone was beautifying the yard. So landscapers were getting almost unlimited, almost too many leads to keep up. So people were able to grow their business. They were able to scale significantly. The only problem with that is once the rush is over, if you've never done much marketing, it's a whole new ball game because now the problem I'm hearing this year is people are running out of job. So I think people's spending habits are changing. I don't necessarily think that the economy is going, we're going into a recession. I think people are just more in debt now than they were because they've spent it on trips and other things and maybe just around the house in general. But on top of that, I think people are cautious that there might be some changes ahead. There's an election in the US. There's a lot of things going on. So I think people's spending habits are changing and contractors have to adapt to that. So there's the people issue, the revenue issue that can become an issue if you're not booked for the whole season. And then the biggest problem of it all, which kind of I would say it's the biggest problem because if you don't fix it, you can have a lifetime or a whole career feeling like it's harder than it needs to be. And it's having the right systems in place in your business so that as a business owner or as a manager, you can feel like there's a better flow in everything. Everyone knows their roles, their responsibilities. People know what they need to do, how to do it, how to produce a quality service and product. And but when you don't have the systems in place, and I very much will talk a lot more about it today, but when you don't have the systems in place, sometimes it feels like it's just always difficult. It can be always difficult with your employees. It can be always difficult when you're trying to get something done. Maybe it's just even the quality control. You're trying to run a business as a business owner, and then when you look back, you realize that your employees don't have the training they need. You realize that they make errors, or the installation or whatever product or service you're bringing is not as of quality of what you would like it to be. So the systems and processes, I was just as annoyed by the words when I used to hear them. We'll get more into that, but it doesn't have to be very complicated. The truth is, most businesses have systems, but some of the systems they use just don't work. And so the big question today is, are the systems you're using working? And if not, what would make the biggest impact with the least effort? That's where I like to start with my clients.
No, I think it's a really lot of good gems inside of what you just said. Talking about hiring, talking about people's spending habits changing, and if your reliance on that, and you started late into the marketing aspect of your business, that will be very problematic.
Mhm.
And then, like you said, with businesses, there are systems in place, but are they the right systems, right? Just because you have a system doesn't mean it's the right system. It could be like a broken record. You have a record, but does it play right, or does it snap?
Yeah,
Does it scratch?
I like it. I love that analogy.
So if you could dig a little deeper, that would be great because let's just say I'm Joe and from Joe's Landscaping and hey Frank, I really need help. I need to turn things around.
Mhm.
Where are you taking me from that point?
Yep. It's always there's always a discovery phase. And what I've realized is when I do my 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 first interview with new potential new clients, they come in and they don't exactly know what's wrong. They might know that there's a lot of things not falling into place, and even if they're very positive, they have a very positive outlook about it all. Sometimes they say, "I just feel stuck," right? And what I've noticed even before starting to ask them questions is I started realizing a pattern. I started realizing that people fall into five categories. And if I'm able to identify in which category they fall into, automatically they seem to understand why it's so hard, right? They seem to understand, why am I always feeling this stress about running my business? Oftentimes it's because what I've noticed is people are running their business in the wrong stage of business. They might think they're, let's say, a stage three business while they're actually just a stage one. And so if they are 5 step ahead, they might feel like there's a lot of systems missing for things to fall in place. So I'd be happy to go through the stages if you'd like, but the main thing is r running your business in the right stage where you're actually are in this stage, and addressing all the things that you need to address in each stage will save a lot of headaches and will feel like finally you can get unstuck. That's how people get unstuck. They realize in which stage they are or should be, and then they start addressing these things that we address for each stage of business.
Mhm. No, that's excellent.
So being ABC Landscapes, or the client, that's where I would start. And so questions that I would ask is, first, are you working in the field? Are you working in the office? That gives me my first clue as to where I need to start, right?
All right.
In stage one, if you allow me to go just through the stages and then feel free to ask any questions. Stage one is really about the contractor who works in the field. We all start there usually, unless we buy a business. I remember starting my own business and I was in the field. I was my first employee and I wasn't even paying myself, but I was in the field and I was doing the work and I was pretty much buying equipment with every bit of money I was making. And so then I started noticing, man, I really need an employee, and in two and three. But I was still working in the field. And as much as we like that, even if we like working in the field, you realize as a business owner, I need more time. I need time to do my bids. I need time to uh, for the whole planning process. I need time to get prepared for my jobs. I need to order those materials. I need to deal with clients. I need to meet with clients. So then you're left with just a couple hours left in your day and you're trying to do it all. And so a lot of people don't make it to stage two. A lot of people stay stuck in stage one because they just don't make the time to eventually go from stage one to stage two. So stage one is really you're on the field, technical competency and the basic business skills is really a must. Although you'll talk to a lot of people in stage one and they'll say, well, I still do my accounting once a year. I send everything to my accountant once a year. It's a big mess, but we do it. I see that kind of stuff, and that's okay. But at a certain point in time, a business has to run like a business, and so um, you need to take all that knowledge that you have on the technical side and pass that on to your employees. So that's not an easy thing to do, but you have to make time, like I said. So the key objective in stage one is really knowing your numbers, knowing how much it costs to run your business, what's included into a bid. There's a lot in a bid that, and that's where a lot of contractors or business owners forget. But the overhead, that's like the hidden cost, but it's cost that you have every month, whether it's heating, whether it's your rent, whether it's the truck that you use to go do the everything, but it could be the marketing, right? It could be anything that you have to spend money on to run your business, but you can't necessarily put it on the invoice of the client. So that overhead usually represents between anywhere from 20% to 35% for businesses in the home service industry. So knowing that, when people price out their jobs, we try to help them to make sure they understand everything, including that big percentage that a lot of contractors forget. And that's why their pricing is so low sometimes, and that affects everybody else, right? So in stage one, it's understanding your numbers, doing a budget to know how much can you spend this year based on your revenue. Where can you put your money? How much should you put in marketing? How much do you need to set aside for your employees for all those numbers that you need? You also need a profit margin. The truth about profit is that we always aim for like a minimum of about 10% net. That's what's left after having paid everything. But people confuse it with the gross profit, and so we really work with people in stage one to know the difference. The gross profit is usually a lot larger, 45%, 40%, but that includes your overhead. When you take the overhead out, you might be left with 10% and hopefully more. But so without getting in too much into these numbers, we just want to make sure that people really understand what they need to run the business, how much money they need to make. And then we start implementing things in place. And sometimes it includes something like training systems for bringing on new employees. It could be, creating roles and responsibilities in the business, knowing what kind of person you need to look for each of these roles. Hiring processes, marketing systems. Once you're able to put that in place, just that part will feel a lot better for a business owner, knowing where they're going, right? So having a plan, knowing, okay, now I have my numbers, I have a plan for the year. Um, I know what I need. Now I need to find it, which is not an easy task, but that's how it all starts in stage one. Any questions so far?
That's a good breakdown of being able to help them understand the stages and what is involved in those stages and really nailing that down. Because, like you
Mhm.
said, people can have that confusion of I'm in stage three and you're really in stage one. Let's actually put you in stage one and help you understand
Yeah.
what goes into stage one, knowing your profit margins, right? Training
Mhm.
with the team, all those critical things in the foundational aspect will help you get to the further stages. And sometimes people will rush and I don't have everything together, but I have 70 something percent,
Yeah.
and we're gonna move on to the next. And then things as they start to expand and get bigger, they break down. Why? Because you never shored up the foundation in stage one.
Absolutely. And just to close off stage one, it's it's really the foundation, like you said, to everything else that your business will need. It's being able to put things in place so that you can eventually step out of the day to day with your employees to be able to work on the business versus working in the business. Um, it's not easy to work, when I think about it, I've been in the industry for almost 27 years now. And if I would have gone back, to year one, I never thought I would have lasted that long because for many, many years, I felt stuck being on the field and it's very common. So that is something that for anyone listening to this, it's if you're in this stage, it's one of the stages that you can get out of the fastest, but there has to be a part of your day that is dedicated to implementations, to adding something new to the mix so that you can have changes within the business so that you can step out of the business. It's busy, it's long hours, but that's what we help people in stage one to do is, okay, let's set up everything for running more efficiently, more easily. So in stage two, once people get out of stage one and they're more focused on office duties and office competency and getting more competent in that role because if you start on the field, sometimes you've always worked with your hands, so the whole office thing doesn't feel natural. So getting used to the whole administrative side of it. That includes, now you're thinking accounting every month. You've hired a bookkeeper to keep your receipts on par. So you're tracking stuff like, hey, are we profitable on each job? Maybe you're doing job costing. You're looking at your actual estimate, your estimated numbers versus your actual numbers and figuring out, okay, well, here are the jobs that were the most profitable. Maybe I have to sell more of these jobs, or maybe I need to train my staff for the jobs where we're least profitable. So knowing where your expertise is very important in stage two because as you're growing your business, if you're growing in 15 multiple directions, it's going to be very difficult to become an expert in every single one of those fields. And the same for your employees. And I see that some people want to offer everything to their clients. And I say, that's great. Maybe you do that generally, but what you promote is what you're going to get the most of. So promoting what you want to do or the type of having a message that's clear for attracting the right employee, the right client is even more important because if you're attracting the wrong clients all the time, it's gonna be tough. So if you want people to see the value in your business and the value of your services and to not ask as much for deals because I don't believe in giving out deals. If you know your numbers, you know for what you need to build it for, it's important to uh, to stick with it to be able to run your business. So in stage two, you're in the office, you're building systems now. You're building systems in the office. You're looking at your inventory, your equipment, supply management, quality control. You're trying to create processes to get feedback loops. So you're getting the feedback every day from clients or from your crews. You're finding out where there's challenges and you're helping them find solutions. Um, One of the common things that happen in stage two is you go from being the owner who answers all the questions of your employees to asking your employees, what solutions would you like, what would you do in this scenario? And you let them give you options, and sometimes that's the only way to learn, is to get people to think for themselves and not to always give the answers, but you're basically a coach contributing to the conversation and helping and supporting and providing resources to your staff. And that's very different, because when you're stepping from stage one to stage two, sometimes it's one of these things where it doesn't come natural to people to do this. Another thing that's very important in stage two is you're going to start to track numbers, like on a regular basis. So you're gonna the most common one would be your making sure you do job costing. So knowing if you're making money on your jobs. So that's the number one, checking your profit on the jobs. You're knowing how much revenue you need. So that's another key performance indicator. We hear KPIs. So those are just numbers, key numbers that we track every month. And then there's other ones like, if you bid a job for, let's say, 200 hours on a job site and you go over by 50 hours, well, it's important, first of all, to track those hours, but also to know why you were over by that much, and to learn from those those jobs where it doesn't go as well. So learning from every job is a key lesson in stage two, and making sure that you're tracking things and guiding people properly. So that's stage two. Any questions so far?
No, that's a good breakdown of stage two, and like you said, making the transition from out the field into the office and getting those things together involve job costing and profitability, and like you said, figuring out what you're good at, right? Because you're not going to be good at everything in the office, so you
Mm-hmm.
be able to figure out, what do you really excel in, and then what are some things where you're like, hey, I need to delegate this.
Yeah. I was the type of contractor when I was in stage two. I had a lot of sticky notes in my truck. There was the little sticky notes, and technology. I mean, now we have our phones with all kinds of apps and reminders and to-do lists and stuff. So it's great. But just having, when you're in stage two, usually getting organized is really what you're looking to do. Is like, okay, I got to get this office organized. I got to get my books organized, my everything. So one of the best things that people can do is invest into a business management software. Sometimes you can get some for, under $200 a month, sometimes a little bit more. Sometimes it depends if you have a larger team. But the goal of having this a software is, the software is going to be multiple things for your business. It might help you do your estimates. It might help you do some budgeting. It might help you keep track of all your leads, like a CRM, where your customer relationship management, everything related to customer relations is in one place. So your discussions, maybe the information you've exchanged with the clients is all there, so you don't forget. But it's important to have it all in one place. And if I just compare it to, when I started out and getting organized, every night I had to take all those sticky notes, put it into my agenda, and then look at it. Okay, did I answer all these calls, right? So, but sometimes we forget, sometimes we lose a piece of information. So having everything in one place for your business is really the key. And those systems, people might have heard of, like Jobber or Element or Synced Up or Aspire. They're all different examples of software that can really, really help simplify the whole process. So no need for Excel sheets anymore, or paper, just doing everything, by hand. So very much embracing technology is a must, because I think in the next 5 years, those who don't use technology will feel totally lost, right? Um, so that's for stage two. Stage three is, you're not in the office anymore. Well, you are, but technically you got more help now. So maybe you've grown the team by a little bit more. But essentially, if you're in stage three, you've been able to really shift your focus to high level sales and relationship building activities. So you're building the business by meeting people, by creating partnerships, by hiring great leaders that can help you manage with you. Usually, you have a right hand person who you can really trust. If you're not there as a business owner, that person can really help take over some of their responsibilities and guide people within the business. That's a real big must in stage 3 is in order for things to get even smoother and um, you need to really find key people, key leadership positions to help you manage everything from the field to maybe even an office manager. At some point, you need to put people who can look over things when you're not there. Another thing that's important is you're really establishing the leadership in your business. So you need leadership systems. You need to teach some employees how to lead people, how to manage numbers, and how to do the things that you had to learn in order to manage the business. So, having training for employees, regular meetings, that's a huge thing. Is when I tell people, okay, you're going to have to start doing team meetings. It can be awkward because some people run businesses without doing official meetings, right? For years and years. All of a sudden, the boss says, hey, we're going to do team meetings on a weekly basis. It kind of feels weird at first. And I tell them, give it a couple months. You don't have to do anything complicated. But something you have to do every week is you have to tell people they're important. You have to acknowledge what they did right. You have to acknowledge what happened on site. If it's great, then you reinforce it. If not, you make it a teachable moment. You can bring in some of the team leaders to talk about the things they've done right, to encourage others to do the same. It's good for team culture. So you're really trying to build team culture with meetings. And so in stage 3, it's really about being the person who's focused on growing the sales side because now your business is, you need to scale it in order for it to, or at least a little bit, in order for it to feel like you can manage all those new employees and all the new things you have in place. It costs a lot more money to do business in stage 3, but it's a great place to be because now you have more support for sure. So stage 3 is really about getting the right people in the right leadership roles and fine tuning some systems so that your leaders can take over and bring you the information that you need as a business owner. So that's stage 3.
Wow, that was a great breakdown of stage 3 and just the transition from, phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 and what that looks like, that makeup and that DNA, and what you said, maybe a little awkward, at first when you're like, hey, we're doing a weekly team meeting and we're going to have trainings and we're going to be doing this. And it's like, oh, wait, where did this come from?
Right?
Right? It's
Yeah.
different, it's change. And sometimes people are reluctant to that change, but it'll be for the betterment of the business.
Yeah. Yep. And another big part of stage 3 is just things can become a lot more predictable. And in stage 3, it starts to feel that way. It starts to feel like, if you have a system, let's say just an example for your sales, let's say you have a good sales process, you know what questions you're going to ask on the phone, you know exactly how much it costs you to get that lead. So let's say you're working with a marketing company and the marketing company says, well, in average, it's costing you right now about $100 for a landscape lead and up to $500 for a large project. And people would say, oh, wow, that's expensive, maybe. But what I tell them is it's more expensive to not get the lead, right? So but the $500, let's say on a large job, let's say it's $100,000 of landscaping or a big job in construction, or it doesn't matter. The larger the ticket item, the more we have to expect that we have to spend money to get it. And eventually the brand might be big enough so that people recognize our brand. They think of us all the time, but there's marketing required for that. And where we're headed in the next year, the economy is slower than it was. So people have to learn more about marketing. They have to be more consistent with marketing. and they have to get out there. That's a real must, in my opinion. And anyone in stage three, if anyone listening to this say, hey, I'm in stage three, I'm gonna say, hey, first thing you need to do for 2025 is really look at your marketing plan. And whether you spend 1%, 3%, or 5% of your total earnings on your marketing, it's going to be important this year. And I don't think people can neglect it, because unless you have a very strong brand, when the phone stops ringing, it doesn't take 2 days to start ringing again. You need to get out there, do things that can take weeks, that can take months. So that's why the earlier you start, the better. And then stage four is, I love stage four because stage four is finally you have the right people in place. You feel like you have the right leaders. Now you have to support them. Now you have to make sure that you essentially, when you get to stage four, you're the coach of your team. You are very much the person who has to check in every day or every week and say, okay, how's it going? Uh, what's happening on the field? What's happening in the office? And you have people, key people that can bring you that information. They can bring you numbers. They might tell you, yep, we've reached our goal, a monthly goal of so much production. Or maybe they'll tell you, there's a lot of rain, so there's been delays. We're a little bit late, but here's the solution. Like they're doing the thinking for you. So this is interesting. But in stage four, what you want to do is you really want to lead the team. You want to focus on growth, and you want to make sure that the company has everything it needs. So sometimes you look at the organizational structure of your business and you're like, man, I just feel like there's something missing. And sometimes it's just having the right person in the right place to coordinate things. So as you're growing, you might have to add some key people. So usually I'll build an organizational structure. It's nothing complicated. Just looks like the owners on top, and then you have all the leaders, and then you have all the different people, and then you really see what's going on in the business and who's being impacted by what decisions, and do we need to add someone to add to the supervision or to the support of the teams, and oftentimes you need to make adjustments in stage four. So in stage four is you start bringing in the team a lot more into the business decision. It's important to work on team culture, to value people's opinion, to deal with conflict, to get rid of the bad apples. I always say sometimes we keep the worst employees because we see some value in them. Maybe they've been with us so long that we don't want to get rid of them, but they don't have a good attitude. They don't want to grow. They don't want to learn anymore. And if you have someone that doesn't want to grow, doesn't want to evolve, doesn't want to learn, you're going to outgrow them. And so you might get to stage four and they've been outgrown by 2 stages. They liked it in stage 1 or 2, but they don't like it in 3 or 4 sometimes. So if you're feeling that, it might just be because you've outgrown those people, or they are not guided in a way where they feel empowered. So this is what you need to figure out in stage four is, really be on par with your numbers, really be on par with your leaders, and to be that coach, that person who can help people make great decisions. So that's stage four. And then in stage five, you are very much the owner of the business, but everything is systemized. What you're going to be focused in that stage is deciding, first of all, do you want to still be involved in the business? The business runs on its own. Or do you want to contribute by maybe having a say in daily operations or being more involved in the high level management decisions or growth? Or maybe you're the person who makes sure that you risk manage the business correctly. So you're asking the questions to your leaders and saying, hey, did we take care of this? Did we analyze that? Are we sure this is the best decision? So when you're in that position, you're really just looking at your dashboard, you're communicating with your leaders, you're getting all the information you need to decide, but you're also planning the future. What do I want to do with the business? A lot of people don't even think of that question until they get close to retirement age, and then they go, wait a minute, what do I want to do? Mm-hmm. And so what I tell those people, it's important when you start the business to know, what would it look like? Is this something you want to build? It's a little bit like real estate. If you build it in a way where it's systemized, you have the right revenue for it. It's giving you the right profit. You have the right people. It's an asset, right? It becomes something that makes you money. And so very much it can be something you can sell later on. And the more things you do, like if you bring your business to a stage 5, it's going to be way more valuable than a stage 1 business. So that's another point that I want to point out to people is sometimes you have to move your business to the next stage, not because you want to get off the field or anything like that. It's because if you make things simpler, you're growing the value also of your business. And so that's important for the long-term plans as well. So just uh, maybe a long-winded description of all the stages, but I think it's very important because I think if people are operating like a stage 4, but they're a stage 1, I remember the first time I wanted to get off the field. It's like one day I made the decision, the next day I wasn't on the field, but I didn't have the plan. So it felt very much like, man, I skipped a few steps because people in the field don't have all the information they need. I should have made a daily plan for them. I should have some systems in place where they feel guided a little bit better. And so that's something very common that I see with businesses.
No, that was an excellent breakdown and overview, and being able to transition from 4 to 5 and having those details and those informations and having that plan. Like you said, don't transition out of the field into the office without a game plan, and don't transition from the office back into the field without some kind of game plan. Because some people are just you could start out as a one-man operation or a one-woman operation, and because it's what you love and what you were doing when you first started out, you may be tempted to go back and just
Oh,
kind of leave things by the wayside.
yeah, yeah.
So you want to make sure that you have that plan. So no, that's excellent.
You mentioned something very important. You said sometimes you're in stage 2 and you almost have to go back to stage 1 because you haven't, you want to go back on the field because you realize you don't have all the systems in place. And that's okay. It's okay to step back, look at things to be realistic a little bit and just to say, okay, this is temporary. But sometimes it happens where people got off the field for too long. And then when they lose control of the business, they decide to go back on the field, but then the employees don't want them there, right?
Yeah.
They like the independence, right? And so it both can create friction if you don't plan it in a way where it makes sense to the whole team. It can actually be um, not in your favor to make certain decisions, but the most important part is if your people know that you care, if your people know that you're moving forward, you're not always looking backwards. I think that's the biggest lesson here is knowing where you are, being very aware of what you need in that stage, being realistic with yourself, um, keeping in mind having the big dreams is not a bad thing. I think it's great. I remember one interview that I had with a client. I said, "What would be your dream?" It was a business from Pittsburgh and two young guys, like 28, maybe 30 years old. And they said, well, right now we're at about 1 million, 1.2 there for 8 years, but just working too many hours a week. And, these guys said, Frank, we want a family. We want to be back in the office. We want to have a normal schedule. They said the dream would just be to have that. And then when I got to the revenue, I said, well, how much revenue would be a dream to you? Like, what would you like to do? You're starting your career. They say, wow, well, we have a $1 million business. We can't even imagine what $10 million business would look like. But if we can get there one day, that would be great because that means we will have more profit for retiring and stuff and investing in the business and real estate and all that stuff. And in 3 years, they went beyond from they went from 1 million to 2 million and from 2 million to four to eight. And their fourth year in, they're almost at 10 million. So just goes to show if you put the systems in place, and these guys worked hard for 3 years, every week they met with me and they implemented something new every week. And I invite people to get uh, get yourself in a quiet space. I find out which stage of business you're in, and if you need help, there's a lot of people out there, including mentors. There's other business owners out there that are happy to help, and there's consultants like myself who do this every day to help the industry to make business owners. I really my goal is not necessarily to help people make a lot of money, although it's possible. It's to have more freedom. And so if freedom means for someone having more money, great, we can do that. But if freedom just means owning a business that doesn't feel like a ball and chain every day, and there's ways to make it easier. And so that's my big focus, is helping people make good money, to feel free, and to have a business that works for them and not the other way around.
That's excellent. I love it. I love it. Well, Frank, thanks so much. Can you let the people know where they can find you at?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much for this. Frankbourque.com. So Frank is easy to spell, and then Bourque is Bourque.com. So frankbourque.com.
All right, excellent. Well, we appreciate it.
Thanks a lot for having me, David, and wishing everyone, all the listeners, a great fall ahead, and some good efforts in the business side of it.
Yes, let's go into fall and winter with some really good momentum.
Absolutely. Thanks,
Well,
Steve.
no problem. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Make sure you tune into the next episode.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Blueprint Boost for Contractors. We hope you found today's insights and strategies valuable for your contracting business. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and please leave us a review. Your feedback helps us bring content that truly matters.